Imagine what Miami would look like today if FIU had never come to fruition. It was an uphill battle. Nobody wanted FIU to open. What would the fabric of this community look like? What kind of opportunities would our children have?
If you could put FIU on the map in a way that no one expects and that you really want to, like, what would that be?
We have 55,000 students, 11,000 employees. So we're responsible for the safety and well-being of thousands of individuals at any given point during the day. We have earned our place. We're number one. We're preeminent. We're a research powerhouse. We're number one in terms of social mobility. So we have arrived.
You always felt that need to go back to public service. That is really the through line and the why behind of a lot of your decisions, right? That's what you really enjoy.
Yes, 100%.
What you've stepped into carries a much different kind of gravity, shaping lives, thousands of them every year. It's about whether a first-generation student becomes the first in their family to graduate, whether a working mom can afford to send her child to college, and push the boundaries. And that's the kind of leadership that FIU needs right now. Welcome to Miami Unveiled, a show about the city you think you know and the people that you've never truly seen. It's not the skyline, it's not the headlines. This is the real Miami, bold, bruised, and burning with dreams. Now, Miami isn't just a place. She's a force of nature. She carves you, she scars you, she tests you. But if you survive her, she makes you part of her story. Today's story is about Jeanette Nuñez. Born in, I shouldn't give her age actually, raised in Village Green though, Miami neighborhood close to Kendall and the old Dade County Youth Fair. She's the daughter of Cuban exiles who fled dictatorship and built a new life in Miami. And let me tell you something, that survival spirit, the conviction that freedom is fragile, dignity is sacred, and service is a duty has defined her path ever since. Across her career, she's never treated public service as ceremony. From Miami-Dade County to healthcare to the Florida House to becoming Florida's first Latino lieutenant governor, she's always led with policy depth, with persistence, and loyalty to people and community. She's navigated the storm, she's stood up when it was unpopular, and she's fought for those whose stories didn't always have a microphone. Her faith has always been her anchor, not just ritual, but lived values of service, compassion, responsibility, and through it all, family has always been at her center. She's not only a leader in public life, a devoted wife, a mother of three, and the lessons she brings to every office, to every part of her career is loyalty, sacrifice, and presence. And they were forged not just in the halls of power, but around her home kitchen table and through the values her family's instilled in her. And now she takes on a role that might be the most consequential of all, president of FIU. FIU is not just another institution, it's a fabric of Miami. Generations of CEOs, civic leaders, and nonprofit champions in this community have walked through its doors. It's where Jeanette studied, it's where she taught as an adjunct professor, and now it's where she's gonna shape our next generation. Because her story has always been more than just titles. It's about what she's always fought for. And I talk about freedom from communism, dignity against human trafficking, and humanity against anti-Semitism. And to Jeanette, these are not separate fights. These are connected battles, and it's a lifelong refusal to let oppression, hate, or exploitation take root. Through it all, she's remained the same. She's proud of her Cuban heritage. She's a patriot who's proud of her American values, deeply loyal to this community, this state, and this nation, and her steadfast belief that service is sacred. And I'll say this personally, in a city that sometimes, in a state and a country, has shifting alliance in politics and rivalries, her loyalty has never, ever been transactional. It's always been real, it's rare, and why it's why this chapter at FIU might matter most. This isn't a political story, it's a Miami story and a Florida story. It's a story about what it costs to belong here and what it means to survive. And if I sound like I understand survival, it's because I'm not just your host. I'm a son of the city too, and I know what it means to fight for your place, inside yourself, and inside these streets. I'm your host, Fred Menachem, and today I'm so excited to be joined by my business partner, my co-creator, and my dear friend, Eugenio Robaina writer. This is the Jeanette Nuñez, the one that most of you probably don't know. This is Miami Unveiled, and we're so excited, Jeanette, to bring you on. What's happening? It's great. It is so great to see you. I'm wonderful. Thank you for joining us. Of course.
Yes, of course. Good to see you both.
It's always good to see you. By the way, do I call you Madam President now? How does that work? What? I mean, I know I call you Jeanette, but how do I start it? I mean, I have to do it like once, Madam President.
Oh, that's fine.
No, but it sounds very. I know you don't care about it. That sounds amazing, right?
Thank you.
I mean, can I curtsy or
it
something?
Really is.
Right.
No, I don't think anybody
No,
wants
it's
to
okay.
see
I'm
you
not
curtsy.
going to. It's just it's comedy. But what's happening? It's great to see you.
It's great. It's great to be here. And that intro, wow. I mean, I feel like I should just quit while I'm ahead and take what you said and really just run with it. But thank you for that kind introduction.
Was there anything that resonated most for you? You were like, that I liked.
I think the part about family and the part about faith, it's always been at the core, like you said. And sometimes people see the lieutenant governor or the state house member, and people have ideas of what politicians are or what they should be doing or not doing. And sometimes I think they fail to see that we're humans, that we're people too, that we live in the community just like you, that we care about the issues that you do, and we have kids that demand of our time. We have to help them with homework and get food on the table. So I think sometimes people lose sight that at the end of the day, we're all just members of this community, and we want to do what's right by them.
I think that. And both of us worked in politics. I mean, actually, that's another story. But all joking aside, I think people also. I was talking to Kathy Fernandez-Rundle yesterday. They sometimes don't understand the complexities of a world that we live in, of having to negotiate, of having to. Right? We were talking yesterday about Kathy. There's terrible things she'd love to prosecute, but she can't. And that's. I think politics. When you're in for a long time, you've always been great at negotiating, about bringing the bacon back to Miami-Dade County. And I mean, and what's funny is, and we're going to get into this later, but you have you're an adjunct professor at FIU, and you went to FIU. And I mean, right? I mean, you're a proud graduate.
Absolutely. Twice over. I'm the first alumna to lead the institution. FIU has been a part of my life for 4 decades.
Right.
Actually, if I go back in time and I look at the impact it had on me, it was my first summer job as a high school student. It was where I went to school, never planned on going anywhere else. I did my undergrad there. I did my master's. My husband, who was my high school sweetheart at the time, then college sweetheart, he and I both attended together. There's not a member of my extended family that hasn't at some point attended or graduated from FIU. So it's been a long, proud tradition of Panthers. And at some point there were some Blazers, but now we're all Panthers. So it really is an important part of my life.
Did you spend time at FIU?
Another Panther over here.
Right, exactly, right.
Important, like FIU didn't just like open the doors for me for like professional life, but it also opened the doors for me for United States, the land of freedom. And I have a lot to talk about and we'll get to it. But one of the things that was very apparent when I was there, and I remember telling this to my now wife, which is that, whatever's going on with FIU, it is growing at a pace than the majority of universities, at least that I was aware of. Then I spent like a good 5 years in higher education actually working. And looking back, it is still the case. Like it's moving at a pace, and everything that is achieved and the size of it, it is clear that the ambition is big, and not only that, but a lot has been achieved. So I'm super excited to get to what we'll talk towards the end about that.
Yeah, I'm excited as well.
Yeah.
We have so much to talk about. I sometimes wish, Jeanette, that we had like 5 hours to sit here. She's like, what are you talking about? I got a lot to do.
5 hours.
But no, I'm kidding. I could actually. I can talk, by the way, right? She's like, yeah. But I'll, my gift and my curse. But let's talk a minute. Let's kind of go back because, I mean, you have... And I say this, you're a Miami story, right? And it's a story of so many, it's not, and you, I mean, in many senses, I mean, you're first generation, Cuban exiles, so proud of your Cuban heritage. I know that. And you're, of course, American heritage, all part of the same thing, but your father fled 1961, right? Talk a bit about that trajectory, your mom, that, and how it's shaped you maybe as a leader, as an American, and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. My story predates me, right? It begins with that decision to flee your homeland, to flee communism. And, I've said this story a couple of times, but it's interesting. I didn't really know a lot. We didn't talk about it a lot growing up. And I think that's true of a lot of Cuban exiles. They maybe didn't want to relive the trauma, or maybe they just wanted to move on and look ahead. But so growing up, I knew, of course, I understood. And, the one thing I knew, Fidel bad, communism bad, the rest,
Mm-hmm.
I started to ask questions later on in life and get more into the weeds and more into the details of how they left and when they left and why, and what was that decision? What was that moment when they said, we absolutely need to get out of here? And so my dad left first. Funny story. He had a cousin that worked in some high level position and told him, the U.S. and Cuba, we're going to break relations. If you're going to leave, you need to get out of here. he had obtained his visa to leave, he was on some sort of watch list, right? So the regime knew that he was very anti-Fidel. He was pretty vocal about it.
One of the few, by the way, because a lot of people initially supported it. It's okay.
Fooled.
I mean,
it's okay. They were fooled. But, my dad was very clear from the very beginning that this was not anything he wanted a part of. So he left. They made the decision. My parents decided that he should go on ahead because they didn't, they were concerned he might get arrested.
Oh, he left first.
Your mom left first. Right. Yeah, he left first. My mom stayed back with my sister, who was very young. She was maybe a year old. And, my mom pretended for a while that he had abandoned them so she wouldn't get in trouble. Oh, wow. So, it must have been a very scary time to leave, not knowing if and when you would be reunited. But thankfully, 6 months later, he was able to bring my mom and my sister. And that started the trajectory of really my life many, many years before I was born. Slowly but surely, my dad worked many jobs to provide. They lived in a
and your mom,
little efficiency.
By the way, worked.
She did
right?
later on. Yeah, she stayed at home first with my sister. But my mom would tell the story, kind of joking, and always has a great sense of humor. Their dining room table was an ironing board. So
that's a very Miami. That's a very Miami story.
It was, and she used to tell the story about how they had, of course, in Cuba we're known for great food, right, culturally, and so my mom said that they had to learn how to eat pork and beans, which they were like, what is this?
What's your favorite Cuban dish?
Oh, that's easy. Ropa vieja.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I wanted one question. Then I thought about something trajectory because you're immigrant. I say you're immigrant. You had to flee too, and I don't know if you want to talk, but before I get to that,
go ahead.
You know why your dad, by the way, was able to get out? This is interesting history, because in '61, and Alex Pinellas and I were talking about, his dad was in prison, right? Mm-hmm. There was still some level of a judiciary. And that was the savior, right? And it changed very quickly. But that's just interesting history. But he has an interesting arc. It's not really. You had to flee.
Like a
in a different way. He had to flee.
It's like a multi-exile story. Right. So my grandparents on my paternal side also fled Cuba. It was 1960, same story. But then later on in my life, we ended up in Mexico, and then ended up leaving Mexico for the same thing, insecurity reasons and many other things. So it kind of makes a big part of who you are. And I think for me, the specific thing that always comes to me is that you're always thinking of what everybody before you had to do for you to have your launching pad, whatever that was. And then I'm always thinking, now that I have two girls, I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, is what am I going to do? What is going to be the starting point that I leave for them? And then that's it. And it's similar. It's not dissimilar to any administration. As whoever was before you achieved something. What are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? And it's always at the back of my mind.
And I was talking about another story, but I guess you're not ready to tell that yet. Online, we'll get to it, about having to flee Mexico.
Yeah, it was just part of that as well. It was just a big insecurity years when President Felipe Calderon was added, but that's just a longer story.
I met your dad. That was another story.
Yeah.
We'll tell that another time.
Tell it another
Yeah, there's another. But Jeanette, look, and the problem with these podcasts is, I told you, there's so much to talk about. So we'll try to get, but I think, your family and a lot of what's molded you, for example, your mom, right? She was an amazing mother, but she had to sacrifice. So she was, and I think this is also why you have really worked hard to be, to have an amazing career, but also be home for your kids. Like that was an immigrant story, right? I mean, what was this? Tell us about that.
She, shortly after they arrived, they got settled. My sister was young. Once my grandmothers arrived, they arrived a few years later. They were able to help with the childcare until my sister was old enough to go to school. And so my mom did end up going into the workforce, and she ended up working for a very prominent family in the community, the Feldenkrais family.
Oh, with George.
With George.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I know he passed this year. It was a very sad day for my family personally. But, she was his first employee. And back when he was not the Imperialis Titan, right? And they were doing automotive parts, import and export company. So my mom and him, they were a duo. She was his first employee. She worked for him for many, many years. She retired when my grandmother got sick to care for her. And then shortly after my grandmother passed, she went back to the family, if you will. She went to go work for his brother-in-law, who also has a distributor, an automotive parts distributor. And the funny story is that she's 89, and every year she threatens to resign and retire. But yet she continues to work, and I think that's what keeps her as sharp as she is.
And I think that's also, and I'm going to talk about this a bit later, we both will, but that's why the Cuban community, the Jewish community is so close, because there was so much, as life changes, early years, you're 10 years younger than me, of course, but in the earlier years, Miami was a different place, right? So Jews and Latinos really came together. Mike Fernandez, Tony Arguez always tell me a story about this community when the Jews, opened the doors because Jews had to come together. And I think Cuban community and Jewish community are very close, strong values and belief in America, and also belief in helping each other. And that's what happened, right? Your mom, right, worked for George, probably, a lot of respect and so, right?
Tremendous amount of respect. And
right.
He was very good to my mom. My aunt also worked for him. My sister. At some point, my brother-in-law was like a family. My entire family ran through, at the time, Carfel, and then Supreme, and then Perry Ellis. So.
But that's Miami.
Yeah.
And that's really our story. But, I mean...
Absolutely.
Okay. So look, I think let's move forward a bit, but there's one thing that I wanted you to, because I thought it was great. We talked about Pino del Rio, where your family came from. So you have great stories. There's Willie Torino had a song, but then there's the Al Capone thing. Have you ever told that story before?
No, and because I just learned about this. I am 53 years old. I'm not afraid to admit it on your podcast.
No, this is great. So here we are.
I just learned this story.
Madam President. She's going to tell a story, by the way, for everybody listening. This is first time ever. And Al Capone.
First time ever I've said this publicly.
Right.
My mother's ancestors, or grandfather, great grandfather, had a liquor business, Guayabitas del Pinar.
A big rum,
a big rum, and everyone that is from Pinar del Rio knows about it. Her whole family was from there, and so apparently, this is the rumor, and I cannot confirm nor deny, but apparently during Prohibition, Al Capone used to send ships to Havana, ships to Pinar del Rio to obtain some bootleg alcohol and liquor.
Wow.
So apparently, yes, my mom's family would load up the barges, the ships, and provide in that regard. So
Prohibition, right?
Don't hold it against me. Hopefully, the statute of limitations.
Jeanette, it's not. I think they're fine. It's not holding it against you. In fact, I have a feeling that runs through the DNA. Not that doing illegal things, but I'm talking about the creativity. Seriously, it was a time.
Thankfully, my mom doesn't listen to podcasts because she might get mad at me for sharing that story.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't. We'll make sure.
Send her a clip.
We'll make sure. We can always cut it if possible. But I think it's a great story.
It's a great story.
So much. But I want to just quickly, because I think it's great. So I was thinking the other day, I was like, wow, you and I have a similar trajectory in the early years I'm like Rain Man, 95 to 2004. You were in is that true? 95 to 2000.
95 to 2004.
Oh my God, look at that.
Yes.
Wow. So you were with Alex, right?
Correct.
And I was with Alex Pinellas.
Yes.
And it was, but I always laugh about this. So I want to just give people that might be listening to learn about Miami, right? So you're gonna laugh at this. So
oh boy.
Miami, no, it's a good thing. No, don't worry, nothing. Right. I know I can push the envelope at times, but that's not it. And this is Mexico has a lot of stories like this too. So I say Miami in the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, you had your head straight policy. I mean, you were focused on really. I was in a little bit different, fundraising and all that. So, but we still saw a small town. So I always laugh. Like for people watching, this was the community. Rivalry, shifting alliances, hermit crab theory, I always joke, but also collaboration. It's so complex. Like you might have been, so I fist fighting in Radio Mambi,
oh my
right?
Yes,
I was talking about,
that.
do you remember it was, who was it? It was Carlos Lacasa and oh my God, Rainier. Oh my God, right. Okay, anyway.
Right.
So, but what I'm saying is you had all these Portilla, Suarez, Regalado, Corolla, Manny, Pinellas, and it was always comical. But the reason why I bring this up is because talking about Miami for a moment, and probably Mexico is similar. We're a small town, so it's so crazy because there's these rivalries, years, right? This one hates this one, then end dating their sister, right? And so, but like talk about that Miami a little bit, because even with everything, so one more fast thing, even with everything going on, like, and you and I were protected and all the drug stuff, and I never saw it, but I'm saying there was a small town, right? Feeling here.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I grew up pretty sheltered. My family,
Right.
we had a wonderful childhood, great upbringing, very close-knit family. We still are today. I went to a very small private school, Westwood Christian. My graduating class was 40.
Where was it? What part of
Westwood
town?
Christian. It's in Horse Country. So,
Redlands?
Not exactly. No, not
right.
so far south.
Okay.
Off of Miller and close to the turnpike.
Yeah.
So, I went to that school. That's where I met my husband in 6th grade. We dated.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cheerleader, by the way. I heard that, right?
Yes.
She had cheerleader, husband,
he was
right.
a football
right.
player. I was a cheerleader.
Right, jock. Yeah, real American story.
The whole 9
American
yards.
dream.
So I was really fairly sheltered. I went to FIU. I had a great experience. And then I get into this crazy world of politics. actually
Crazy.
and completely by chance. Even though I studied political science and international relations, I never really processed what I was going to do with that degree. And then I graduate, and of course, you're looking for a job. My boyfriend at the time, we were engaged.
Your boyfriend,
yeah,
the sixth
now my
grade,
husband,
right.
we were engaged. We were going to get married the following year. So I was like, I need a job. We have to buy a house. We have to pay the bills. So I applied. FIU helped me. They helped me with my resume. They sent my resume along, and then I end up meeting with one state representative. It didn't pan out, and he referred me to Alex at the time. And so I got that job, not knowing exactly what it was. I really wasn't planning on going to Tallahassee. I was going to be the local person. And then all of a sudden, I get married, January of 1996. I come back from my honeymoon, and he's like, oh, guess what? You're going to be the aide, and you have to go to Tallahassee in 2 weeks. And I was like, I didn't sign up for this. I don't know what you're talking about. But I went, and it was a great experience. But really never imagined, to your point, the rivalries, the backstabbing,
I say the hermit crab theory. Although I think a lot of communities have that. But climbing on, right?
Yeah,
right.
I say,
were you shocked by it a little bit?
I was a little bit.
Soap opera. Tell me about it.
One of the aides that worked for a rival member.
We won't say the name. Right, exactly.
He was very kind, and we actually became good friends. He said to me, I'm not supposed to talk to you because our bosses hate each other. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, but you're nice. I like you, and I'll help you out if you need anything. So I was just like, okay, this is a cutthroat world. So here we go.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
So right now, you just walk us a little bit through youth and then beyond. But I remember I asked you this question in the pre-interview, a little bit more about your childhood, but I wanted to ask you the same question about your youth. Because we're telling people, like, what did it feel, Miami back? And then especially for those of us that were not here. Mm-hmm. So if I walked into your Miami of youth, like, what would I see, hear, or feel? Like, and I'm not talking about, like, the home. It's like, how would Miami felt? I mean, I got here 15 years ago, and the stories that Fred told me what Miami used to be versus what it's now, it's amazing.
So I would say probably no different than today. It's almost like a tale of two cities, right?
Right.
So there's the glitz and the glamour and the very ugly underbelly. Yep. In the 80s when I was growing up, it was all the cocaine and all of these criminals that are arriving and all the safety issues and community. Right. But I never lived that. I never experienced it. Where I lived out in Village Green, I was, again, sheltered and insulated to the reality of what was happening. You see Cocaine Cowboys, or you see any one of these documentaries, or you read Hollywood. Any of these books, and I was like, where was I? Because I never saw any of that. And certainly I think that was a testament to my parents, making sure like they were on top of us. But it just really, it's very similar to today. There can be a very, a Miami that's very flashy and all this excitement, but then there's a Miami that's very sleepy and very, But
it was
homey.
A little bit slower, right? Yeah. Right now, like we're dense.
Depends on where you go. The traffic is bad no matter where you go. True that. For sure.
Yeah. But that's why I always say that one of the reasons we're doing this show, because people need to know the real Miami, right? Look, we grew up, and I know you grew up, and you as well, but you came to Miami later, but charitable. We didn't have a lot of resources. Federal government wasn't so great back then to Miami, and we had to build everything, right? Yeah. Very few, and so we were so committed. You met some of my family members earlier, my sister, my and everybody. We grew up with that, as you did, and you're Catholic. We grew up with the belief in service and all of that. So I think that I felt protected. I mean, I lived in East Kendall by Killian, and it was a Graciela. They were like, shoot, I don't remember any of that. Like, I didn't know. But still, and you asked about the Miami then. Come on, Hot Wheels. You went to Hot Wheels?
Yeah, of course I
did. Oh, you did? Really?
Sure did.
La Covacha? You weren't big on going out, right? Right.
You were. You did. I got married very young.
Oh, okay.
So my husband and I would go out.
Yes, right.
I mean, I can count on one hand the times we went clubbing in South Beach before we got married and had kids. I mean, it wasn't our scene.
So maybe we can all go out soon, right?
I'd probably fall asleep.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
But yeah, I mean.
But Hot Wheels, so you were roller skating.
Of course,
Hot Wheels.
We went to Hot Wheels. But now you've got art, you've got culture, you've got, if you want to, just relax and enjoy time with the family.
I like quieter life, really.
I do too nowadays. Every once in a while, we like to go out to eat and have a good time. But
no, I agree. Being home is, and you have 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
All right. So how old are they?
So 26, 24, and 19. And the older 2 kind of followed in my footsteps. The older 2 got married last year. My daughter, the oldest, she married her college sweetheart.
Oh,
And,
wow.
So they're doing well. And then my middle one married his high school sweetheart, both within 10 months of each other. So we had a very exciting year last year.
And they're all here in Miami?
You married in Miami.
They're all here in Miami?
They are. All three of them
That's
are
amazing.
here. Yeah,
The whole
close
family
by.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on a bit to I mean, I guess a little bit in healthcare, just quickly, because I want to, and the reason why I bring this up is because, your career is so diverse, and people look at you, lieutenant governor, politics. That's not you. You learn policy. You were at Jackson, for example, when it was about to go bankrupt, right? I mean, HCA. So talk about, first of all, how that, because that's part of the community trajectory, right? And the skills that you learn there that have helped you throughout your career.
100%.
Yeah.
So I would say that every facet of my career has been, I wouldn't say by chance, I believe in divine providence, but I would say
Sure.
it's been unexpected. And I would never have imagined that I would have gone from being a legislative aide, working in Tallahassee, to working in a hospital system.
Right.
And one of the largest hospital systems.
You can plan, but then...
Right? God laughs at your plans. But when I went to work there, it really was challenging times for the institution. The hospital was in financial duress. There was a lot going on. I really honed my policy chops, as you will, on the healthcare front. And so advocating for Jackson locally, at the state level, federally, it really exposed me to the importance of good policy making.
Yep.
And good leaders and good decision making, because an institution as important at that time and still remains.
And it's very important.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're at two from FIU.
Yes,
I mean, it's an
yes,
integral part of this
absolutely.
community.
So an institution so important to the community. The thought of it becoming, bankrupt, and the thought of it closing its doors was unfathomable to me. And I really took that institution, like I carried it on my shoulders, and I did the best I could for it. And so I was really passionate about the work I did then. And then from there, I went to what they like to call the dark side, but I certainly
The dark side.
the for-profit side.
Well, no, let's call it advocacy
No, but I
or
loved
governmental
it.
affairs.
I
Right.
really think that experience
It's
provided me with, a real attention to the bottom line and corporate America, and understanding that, mission and margin and all those things. A great opportunity there to really understand healthcare from a for-profit side, because if all you ever know is the public side, I think you lack a dimension to the understanding of, again, healthcare policy.
He understands corporate.
Yes.
Sorry.
It needs to make business sense.
Yes.
So, I mean,
You understand the
I've been
corporate
on the
world.
dark side
For me, it
a
makes me
long time.
uncomfortable. I can't get the right. But you get it. Well, you've worked in
Absolutely.
that.
But I do remember that you also said that even though you said things happen to you and you're going and working around it, you always were figuring out, or you always felt that need to go back to public service. Yeah. That is really the through line and the why behind of a lot of your decisions, right? That's what you really enjoy.
Yes. 100%. So I think public service, when people say it means different things, right? It might mean something different to you than it does to me. And I really, again, never planned on running for office, because I believe that you can do a tremendous amount of public service through either your day job, or through your philanthropy, or through boards that you sit on, or just giving of your time. And so I never expected to run for office. I viewed my day job, if you will, as public service,
right.
And it was, and it truly believed that
It is.
But then, as I was working in that setting and understanding that decisions are being made that are going to impact whether an institution or an organization really shutters its doors or maintains access for the community, I thought, well, these folks that are here, they do a fine job. And I had great relationships and great respect for many legislators, having worked on the inside. I said, but certainly I have something to offer. I mean, I can help guide healthcare policy for the state of Florida. And so that was the catalyst of me running in 2010.
State rep.
Yeah, for state rep. And it was a grueling campaign.
Who was it? Who'd you run against?
So I had a primary, had two other people in the primary. Then I had a general.
I remember.
Two city council
You
members.
Wow, you got some thick skin, Jeanette.
I sure did. I developed it over the course of time.
Right.
I wasn't always like that. So for anyone listening, if you think that you can't put up with some of the critiques of politics, I assure you, you learn to develop thick skin.
I wanted to just I'm going back for a second because so you brought something interesting. And Jackson, I've always been engaged, in a lot of things, you know that. And I think you were saying earlier, that's where you and I really got to know each other. And it was a very difficult time hoping that hospital could be saved, right? But the system. But I just thought, you remember something when Carlos Maguire came in? He didn't have any healthcare experience. Remember that? And sometimes I think it's so interesting how we live in this world where sometimes the best people that make the best changes are the ones that walk in. Look what he's done, right? And he had no health. Carlos had no health banking, right?
He's a banker.
Yeah,
Great.
interesting. And so talk about that for a minute. How he was a leader that all these people came in with healthcare conventional background, but they weren't able to do it, and he did. How did that work?
Great leader,
Right.
great man, has done a great job. I actually ended up going to work for him at some point on a contractual basis.
Yeah.
So from 2013, more or less, to about 2018. But I could tell you, he came in, I was working for HCA at the time. We butted heads a little bit. I won't share that story
I can see
today.
that. You're tough, though. It's easy to butt heads.
I won't share that
Right.
story. He's probably, if he listens, he'll chuckle. He'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But
Right.
we ended up becoming great friends. I view him as a mentor. I view him as someone that I really turned to when I was taking on this position. He was part of the presidential search committee. He provided a lot of perspective in terms of leaders. And there was a lot of, and we'll just throw it out in the open because I'm sure listeners want to, they're like, they're making it all look great.
Nothing's all
but
perfect.
There was a lot of naysayers, and there continues to be.
There always
I'd be lying if I told you there wasn't. Internally and externally, that didn't think I was the right person for the job.
Oh, I know that.
She's
right.
not an academic. She doesn't have a PhD. What does she know about running a large institution like FIU?
Right.
And so Carlos was kind of my gold standard. And I talked to him a lot about it, and he gave me a lot of insight in terms of how to move forward, how to make sure that you are absolutely doing right by the organization and the institution. And I look at him as someone that absolutely, without any prior healthcare experience, has done a great job because he listens, he understands, he's decisive, and he also knows how to bring in good quality talent.
Surrounding yourself, right? No.
Well, one thing actually, you're talking about like also skill versus sector. And it's always been a topic when you're hiring or you're bringing somebody else in. But I actually believe that when somebody has been beyond the sector and they've gone exploring on different things, it's only going to help. It's really the person, their ability, and then the accumulations of skills. So question to you is, what's been, I guess, the most transferable skill from politics to today that you're like, I'm going to show them what's up. In a good way.
I'd say networking, relationship building, making sure that you have the ability to develop consensus and build coalitions, being able to walk into the office of the Speaker of the House,
right.
Being able to get an appointment with the NIH director, being able to meet at the White House, being able to leverage those relationships, those individuals, years of understanding politics and policy, right? They go hand in hand. As much as you want to say, okay, we're going to be purists, we're only going to look at the policy, there's so much politics that takes place. And I'm not even talking about politics from the standpoint of R versus D, just the dynamic of a process that is always looking at things from a political lens. So I think I was able to hit the ground running. I was able to deliver results for FIU early on, both in DC as well as in Tallahassee. And those transferable skills of, understanding, negotiating, making decisions that are going to put the university on good footing, I think that was the easiest part.
And I think, and I brought Carlos up for a reason, by the way. I did because I was getting to a point, not necessarily the criticisms, because we live in a world where, people don't often, they forget to give people accolades. And one of the reasons why we're doing this, I mean, there's so much good, and I brought him up because it's really, look at Miami folks, right? How we grew up. We're entrepreneurial spirit. We think out of the box. We come from, different, I say the back door, side door, in a good way. I'm saying we don't see things, and it's because we grew up in a community, you had to, immigrant community, you had to freaking improvise. And I think that's what is actually bringing your success. And the other thing I'll say is you said something earlier. I love this, by the way, listening to this. You said, and I was the same in politics, that it was a rival, right? And but the thing was, I was always that way too. I was friendly, because at the end of the day, collaboration, work together, and excuse my language, this is not bullshit, right? And we're here to serve the community. But my point being, I brought it up because that's actually a positive. And, you know, we were talking about this yesterday, that, you know, there's always the model, like I'm talking about the model of universities, okay, academic, right, this and that. And so now we're shifting, and I don't think it's a bad thing, by the way, you know, folks that come from a political background, government background, but, you know, the academic model is great, but we're seeing problems with it now. And I'm not getting political, I'm just talking, and we'll talk a bit more about some of this from an academic standpoint. We're seeing problems in universities, and so this is a new model, right? You come in, you understand policy, you're able to bring dollars back. You have an amazing capacity to negotiate on all sides with everybody. And so my point is not to give you, like, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, you can pump yourself. I'm saying you know yourself. But I say that institutionally, and I think from a national perspective, if that continues, it may be a positive thing.
Well, I think it's also important that, you know, in roles such as the ones that I've had in my career, and I've been blessed to, you know, be in the Florida House, be lieutenant governor, I really have prided myself on trying to develop relationships in a positive way and not in a transactional way, because oftentimes you see, you know, elected officials, you know, you're here today, you're gone tomorrow, so you're just trying to see what you can take advantage of. And I think, you know, I think you'd be hard pressed, and it's not about giving myself accolades, but you'd be hard pressed. There are a few naysayers and detractors, but of the people that I served with, you know, I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone that said, you know, she didn't, you know, give it her all. She didn't try to do everything to the best of her ability. I really tried to develop relationships, and, you know, today's intern is tomorrow's president, and today's staffer is tomorrow's legislator.
Today's assistant is now freaking president.
So
that's
why
right.
Cut where you can untie.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lesson that all too often we forget. You know, in the hard world of politics, it's bare knuckles. And I'm not telling you I didn't have some fights, and I am certain there's
really, you don't think I know? Right, of course, right. But you have to fight sometimes.
Of course,
right.
and you're not accomplishing anything. So there are a few people that I'm sure I rubbed the wrong way, but it was always I think it was always professional, and, you know, never nasty.
And by the way, and you had a lot. I know you wanted to talk about when Jeanette was lieutenant governor. There was something. There were some other things you wanted to talk about. Yeah.
And I mean, especially hearing you speaking about this moment of your life, is there a decision that you're the proudest of? Not because it was the most popular, but because it was right.
Oh, that's a great question. Wow, you kind of threw me for a loop.
Right.
You know, a decision or an issue that I champion. I would tell you, I would say there's a lot of things. So I'd probably watch this and I'll rewind and say, oh, I should have said this instead of that. But I would say really championing the issue of combating human trafficking early.
Yep.
Now it's very popular. It's in vogue. Everyone wants to do their part. Everyone understands it a little bit better. But this goes back to 2007, more or less. Yep. I started serving on the board of Christie House. Obviously, it was an organization dedicated to child sexual abuse. And so human trafficking was not something we talked about. You know, you thought of it as it happens in countries far away. It's not something that happens in our neighborhood. And I started learning about it, and, you know, from a policy perspective, you know, early on, me and a few others really started to roll up our sleeves. And I think that being able to champion that legislation, again, early on, there were some people that were concerned.
Oh, I remember.
Because it was like you were decriminalizing criminal activity. They weren't viewing it from the prism of that person is absolutely a victim. They are being victimized many times a day. By their pimp or by whoever. And so I think it took a lot for people to understand. And so I would say that's one of the areas where I'm very proud of the work that has been accomplished. Florida is a leader by all measures in terms of how much it's done to convict and prosecute the criminals, to hold people accountable, to educate, to provide law enforcement with the tools, training, resources, dollars that have been allocated for these programs. So Florida is by all accounts a leader, and so I'd like to think I played a small role in getting that off the ground.
I wanted to just quickly, and I know there's, you know, I don't know if you knew this, but I worked in foster care for quite some time, and I was there. I don't want to get into the whole story. We both know a lot of what had happened, but there was a lot of prostitution in the group homes, remember? And it was, by the way, on a side note, I just want to point this out. everybody likes to make politics so divisive, but Kathy Fernandez-Rundle was here talking at the same time. You guys, she was very engaged in that human trafficking issue as
yes,
well,
we served on the
and about
council
how
together.
highly she respected you, about some of that. But I bring that up because I remember Carol Marvin Miller. You remember all that, and look, at some point, and I don't want to talk about like specifics, but there were certain organizations that knew it was going on. Just allow it because they wanted contractual stuff. And I was clearly very upset. I ran and so you saw that a lot, right? And we're not going to tell that whole, but it was happening, and they were
really,
staying
really
quiet.
sad.
Yeah.
And we still have a lot of struggles and challenges today. But again, I think Florida, if you compare us to other states,
It's
night and day. What we've done and what we've accomplished and the route that we're taking, I think is absolutely.
And by the way, thank you for that. And that's another example of when politics is not divisive. This is about kids and trafficked children, like Grace Court. That this is not about everything in politics. Isn't what people see in the front. A true difference, and we talk about the flash of this community. Sometimes Miami can look so pretty from the outside, and in the underbelly, there's a lot of bad stuff happening, and that's really why sometimes I say, and this might sound like prude, and I'm far from it. Anyone knows me, but I sometimes think that maybe there's something to be said about having all these adult entertainment places and all this stuff, and the very liberal use of drugs everywhere. I'm not saying everybody should be arrested, addiction and treat, but I sometimes feel like it's become a little bit outrageous. I mean, family values and all of that, and like I said, people can have fun, but do you see that a little bit in Miami? Like it's becoming a bit acceptable, like behaviors that might be not so good for the community.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, that's
right.
That's some of the challenges that we face. I face it as a parent.
Right.
I face it as now a university leader. We have FIU is like a large city, right? We have 55,000 students, 11,000 employees, people coming in and out of FIU campuses each and every day, and so we're responsible for the safety and well-being of thousands of individuals at any given point during the day. And so those are some of the things certainly that we consider and that we're constantly monitoring for the safety and well-being of our students in particular.
Yep. And again, I say that only because I think that it's so important. And we talked about human trafficking. I know I got to move on, but this issue is just near and dear to my heart. Yeah. And you can see very pretty things in front, but that stuff's going on, behind the scenes. And I say that again because that's a concern that I have. But you want to move on to some other issues. But one day let's talk further about this. Yeah. And I think it's important.
Yeah, I don't want to depress your
it's
listeners.
It's not depressing though. It's not. We have amazing things happen in this community. Yes. We have FIFA. We have all these things, but you have to understand with that comes also bad things. And again, we're not trying to depress anybody. We have to see the positive. But again, we also have to be aware, is my point. Yeah. Right.
So talking about those more amazing things.
Right. Less depressing things, right?
You wore a lot of caps as an LG, right? And one of those that I find extremely interesting, and we haven't spoken about it, and maybe we can just do a quick parenthesis on this, is any Space Florida or NASA moment that stuck with you personally?
Yes, absolutely. Well, if you have not seen a launch, you must absolutely go and see that. It's spectacular. So a launch for sure, I would say check that box and do that. I had the opportunity to see a couple of launches and just really amazing. But I would say the thing as chair of Space Florida, which I was chair for many years, the governor reappointed me once I left being lieutenant governor. He was kind enough to reappoint me in my current capacity as chair, so I continue.
You're still?
I'm still the chair. Yes, 6 years running.
Of which
of Space Florida.
So can I wear the spacesuit? Will you get me one?
You certainly can.
No, but you help me out. Like, can I get like an official one or no? Right?
No.
Oh, come on, man! I can't even get that.
No, it's too expensive.
But anyway, right? Exactly, right.
No,
bottom line. Right?
I'm still chair of Space Florida, and what I'll say the thing that I had the most fun with was we launched a Lieutenant Governor's Space Art Contest. And so the reason for that was twofold, right? So we wanted to engage students and we wanted them to understand, there are many opportunities and career opportunities in the space industry, and we sort of wanted to make it fun for them and cool, right? So I think, growing up, I know there was people that growing up in the 60s and that was like the heyday. I think there was a lull, of course, after the Challenger explosion, which is very sad.
Do you remember
and
sitting in
tragic.
class?
I do.
I mean,
saw
I'll
it.
never
It was eighth
forget.
grade. I'll never
the
forget.
Square TV, yeah.
Yeah. So I think there was like a lull with, space and NASA. And I feel like, our generation of kids missed out on kind of the excitement of the space industry. And now I believe it's back. And so we wanted to sort of harness that excitement and enthusiasm, in the SpaceX of the world and the Blue Origin and all the satellites going into space. And so we launched a space art contest. And what I can tell you is we went up and down the state of Florida, visiting with schools, going and meeting. It was a K through 5, kindergarten through 5th grade contest. The hardest part of my job was picking the winners.
It's on you?
I did. Well,
oh, come on.
So the Department of State would whittle it down to 10 per grade. So they did the hard part, but getting to those final decisions, the grand prize winner and the winner of each category, it was so hard. We have a lot of talented kids in Florida.
Oh my God.
So we got to really engage with students. We got to engage with the teachers. They were all really excited about it. And then also kind of that mentality that we need to reach into the K through 12 system to talk about space. If you're waiting till they're in college and you're trying to recruit them to be engineers or technicians, it's too late. So I feel like that led to our desire to build out space academies. So there's currently about 35 school districts throughout the state of Florida that have partnered with Space Florida to develop curriculum around the needs of the space industry of the future. And so more than half of our school districts are embedding space academies in different schools throughout the counties. So it's really an exciting time to see how K through 12 is now looking at the space industry for future career opportunities.
Love that.
I love space.
Did I already see something like going on with FIU? Are you already creating some of those synergies from that?
So we hosted the Space Florida board meeting just last week.
I saw that,
As chair, I have a personal privilege of hosting the board meetings wherever I'd like. So I said, absolutely, I'd love to host.
Oh, really? It's good to host the board meeting? I mean,
we usually host it close to the Space Coast in Orlando.
Right.
But we'll travel, and we've gone to different locations because there is a burgeoning industry in South Dade, in South Florida, around the space industry. So while it might not be the launch that you see out of Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral, there's all kinds of advanced manufacturing, satellite productions, and spaceport territory at Homestead Air Reserve Base, which is now Homestead Spaceport Territory. So really exciting opportunities there. But I will tell you that when you look at what's happening at FIU as it relates to the space industry, our College of Engineering, we are developing the next generation of satellites and antennas, and we're developing reconfigurable antennas. You can fold them, you can stack them, they're lightweight. We're developing water filtration systems for the next generation.
And you're probably working with other countries on that. I mean, right? There's some.
No, we work with other universities.
Yeah, other universities, right? Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
We do a lot of work for the defense mechanisms, that they're going to need. We're working on creating coatings for the hardware that will go to the surface of the moon.
Outstanding.
So lots of stuff going on at FIU on the space industry front.
Sorry, I wanted to just talk about the space. I want to move to. We have a lot in cyber next. Let's talk about cyber next. But real quick, but space. Because first of all, I love space. I'm obsessed with space, and we grew up in the same.
You want me to volunteer you to go on the?
Are you kidding? Can you imagine me? You don't want to go with me. Can you imagine me?
No, I'm not going to go.
No, but can you imagine? No, what I'm saying is, can you imagine me with a bunch of like calm people being stuck? I mean, I might come back. I may not come back, but I am.
They will not let you come back.
No, they won't. No, or I might be locked in a room, right? But all joking aside, we grew up the Challenger, and it was horrible to watch. But we also grew up. I love space for a lot of reasons, but I also think it's so important, and maybe this is, I don't know if people talk about this, because it makes us understand, and you have a lot of faith, that we live in a planet that is not just, we sometimes get this ego as human beings, like we live in a planet that's huge and universal and a planet, I mean, there's so many other galaxies and so much going on, and it makes us creative and understand that the world doesn't operate around each of us. It's bigger, and I don't want to get into faith for a moment I don't care. I mean, look, that there's a world, God, there's so much more to the world, and we are not, and to be arrogant enough to think that somehow we rule it. And so I think space can open doors, right, to that mentality. Would you see something? Would you agree with me in a sense? Or
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, the creativity part,
Right.
Imagine being around in the 60s when we decided as a country that we were going to go to the moon. Like, I feel like, America needs that aspirational goal, that
Yes.
out of reach goal. And whether it's around space or around the next generation of technology. And, I know you mentioned cyber and of course, AI and all the
Right.
things that are happening today at a very disruptive breakneck pace. And just really excited to be at a place where you can, again, leverage all of those things that are going to be the future.
And and we'll talk about cyber for a minute, but one more thing I can't help. So, and you may or may not know this, but, and I'm fascinated with history, right? And politics, but more than and so the country was not supporting space at one point. And then Kennedy came in and we choose the moon. And that's why words, it was a speech. And he came in doing exactly what you said to show people, right? This is bigger than us. And after that speech, that's why words matter. The country moved. And that's, if it wasn't for that, and that's how public politics also can, not talking about partisan, but can also change. And then guess what? If it wasn't for that speech, we wouldn't be.
I think he said something to the effect of, we're not going to the moon because it's easy. We're
Right.
going because it's hard.
Right.
And I feel like that is the
Oh, you know it? Oh, look at you.
I feel like that.
Right.
Well, as chair of Space Florida,
No, I would
know a
hope
few
so.
things.
No, I was hoping to stump somebody, but it didn't work. Right.
No, but I think that can do, out of the realm of possibility today, that is the American entrepreneurial spirit. That is what I see at FIU every day. That's what excites me because our students, they embody that. And I am certain that whatever the next breakthrough is, whatever the next technology is, FIU is going to play a role in that.
I have no doubt. So you want to move to FIU?
It's a perfect segue.
Yeah, this is like,
FIU, yeah.
and we. Oh wow, this is my for me. And yeah, this is the most exciting part for me because FIU is such. Let's start there. FIU, and I think sometimes we take for granted in this community. And I'm not pointing at you, but you're younger, right? And you moved here. Sorry, I'm taking a little jab, but with love. But sometimes people take for granted where we were and where we are now, right? So FIU, you kind of grew up near enough to FIU, Dade County Youth Fair, the animals stuff going. But all joking aside, what a fabric of this community. FIU has been. I remember how small it was at one point, but it always has embraced the members of this community, CEOs, people in public service, the whole world. And there's great institutions here. I'm not diminishing that because I know, and you do too, relationships.
Yeah,
but the truth is, I think sometimes we forget how important and integral FIU. Remember, Joe Greer was, the meta. I love Joe, but it's another. But talk a minute for that because you went to school there, you've seen it. This is an institution that is incredible. That has done so much. And I think you believe, I think you're there with me, right?
I believe it. I'm a product of it. Here's what I'll say, and I've said this many times, and I hope it doesn't get to the point where it's redundant. But
it's okay.
I firmly believe that if you were, for just a second, to imagine what Miami would look like today if FIU had never can't come to fruition, right? And so it was an uphill battle from what I understand back in the 60s that nobody wanted FIU to open, competitive nature is what it is. And so imagine if FIU had never come to be, or if FIU had never gone to law school or a med school. What would the fabric of this community look like? To your point, what kind of industry leaders would we have moving their companies to Miami? What kind of opportunities would I have had or would our children have? Because if you go to school here, chances are you're going to stay here.
Right.
Our students,
I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
For one.
Our students love to stay in the South Florida area.
Yeah.
So I think that the importance, the impact, the success, the excellence of what FIU has provided this community. I often feel, and I've said this multiple times too, I feel like FIU suffers from acute humility, if I was diagnosing it.
And that's not always a good thing,
And
right?
it's not a good thing
Right,
from my
right.
perspective. And I feel like we have arrived, we have earned our place. We're number one based on the state's performance metrics 3 years in a row. We're preeminent. We're a research powerhouse. We've grown astronomically. We're number one in terms of social mobility, top 15 innovative, number 20 ROI. So we have arrived. There is no doubt about it.
It's time to be loud.
Now it's time to be loud,
That's
obnoxiously
right. Wait,
loud.
you ready for this, Jeanette? Wait a minute. Here I go. So you're brilliant. You understand policy. You can negotiate. You also were a cheerleader growing up. So, I mean, no, but seriously, it all kind of, right? Be loud, right? I mean, you're proud and loud, right?
And
right.
our reputation needs to match our reality, because our reality is one of excellence. And so I think it's a marketing opportunity. It's a communication opportunity. It's just an opportunity to really reach out to the leaders of this community, to the leaders of our state, so that they recognize that this is an asset that needs to be treasured, that needs to be enhanced, and needs to be well-funded and well-resourced.
You're very strategic, by the way. I love it. I have a very strategic mind. Well, it just works more emotively. I think you're much more, you very good with logic.
Strategic or motivated?
No, it's not strategic. It's not strategic in a, it's good. It's good. Yeah. I'm saying strategy is not worth anything if there's not truth behind it. Right?
And
the thing is, right, and execution and integrity and all that, but sometimes you can have an amazing product. Like I call it whatever you want to call it, amazing institution, but people are not, maybe they're academic, and that was the old world, and they don't know how to. So that's my only point. And so we'll help you get loud and proud about it. I'm here. I'm on your side.
That's why I'm here.
That's right.
I remember you telling me this when we spoke before, and I asked you what surprised you the most about stepping from the LG office into running FIU, and your first thing was, it's busy.
It's busy.
But tell us a little bit about it, especially for the audience.
It's still busy. Yeah, it's so I thought I was very busy as lieutenant governor, traveling across the state, championing issues, tackling important initiatives, holding press conferences, having meetings. I had a number of things going on right before I left that I was really proud of the work we were doing. So I thought it was busy, right? And so I get to FIU and I was like, wow, the pace, the speed, the size and the scale of the institution. One day I am a general contractor making decisions around buildings that we're building. The next day I am a CFO understanding the budget. And the next day I am a referee, trying to mitigate some issues and challenges. And, we're big. And so, of course, there's going to be circumstances where there's little hiccups or where things don't go exactly as planned. I think my first week on the job, the fire alarm went off, and my chief at the time, he threw up his hands. He's still my chief, for the record.
He's still okay.
He's like, oh gosh, I'm out of a job.
Right, exactly, right.
At the time, he was like throwing up his hands, like this never happens.
God,
I was like, of course it would happen.
Of course you should. But
and then
that's what happens,
another funny story, which might segue into another topic I know you had mentioned we wanted to discuss, but the Consul General of Israel was visiting with me, the ambassador.
Who was you talking about? The newest one, right?
Mayor, the old.
Oh, Mayor. Yeah. Oh, okay. Mayor was
there, and the ambassador, the Israeli ambassador, was in my office.
Oh, yeah, right.
And so we are having a lovely conversation, and all of a sudden, again, the fire alarm goes off.
Oh my!
So I'm like twice in like a couple of months. I'm like, this is incredible. And so of course, his security detail rushes into the room. They're none too pleased about this alarm situation. My chief,
and especially, was in your office. Oh my God!
He's like, I can't believe this.
Oh my God! But
so little hiccups.
But those stories are. That's the Miami stories like that, right? Those are the best stories ever. And you have a sense of humor, and having a sense of humor about things,
you have to. At FIU,
right?
you have to have a sense of humor.
Of course.
To the same through line that you're speaking about, but what's something that FIU is already doing that will change the city's future, but most Miamians don't realize it yet?
Oh, great question. There's so many things, but I'll narrow it down to one.
Yeah.
The future of healthcare, really, I think, is going to be completely upended by not only the partnership that we entered into with Baptist and Nicholas, but we're going to be building a clinical facility on campus right off of 107th Avenue and 11th Street. You're going to see a 7-story building.
There's the contractor hat.
That's my general contractor's hat, yes. You're going to see a 7-story building where we're going to have access to all kinds of important service lines like oncology, neurology, orthopedics, primary care, all in partnership with Baptist. Thanks to the legislature, they were very generous. We got a significant amount of state funding to be able to build this building. Governor signed off on it. So it was quite the uphill battle. But you're going to see that building come up pretty quickly. We're going to be breathing down those contractors' neck under budget and ahead of schedule. Right. That's my mantra. Under budget,
I love
ahead
it.
of schedule.
Wow, look at you.
Not on time, on budget.
Right.
No, under budget and ahead of schedule. But yes, that's going to completely change the work we're doing, the research we're doing around pediatric cancer, Alzheimer's. I mean, really impactful research that is going to pair very nicely with our clinical partners and the opportunity to make a significant difference in
That's
in
the
healthcare.
expansion and size that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just like this.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, okay, and I'm gonna have to do more rapid fire now. We're like running out of thing, right?
Yeah.
Right, but still no, because there's so many. But I do want to talk some kitchen table issues, and I wish we had time. But as it relates to FIU and the exciting, like I say, I'm excited for you because affordability. Let's start there.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw it out. I had a whole cinematic thing. But go ahead. Let's throw it out. Affordability.
Affordability.
In a minute, 2 minutes. Right. Right.
FIU
Right.
and the state of Florida, we have held the line on tuition. We haven't increased
Right.
tuition for our Florida residents in probably 12 plus years. We did have an opportunity to raise tuition a little bit for out of state.
Yep.
So those that are coming from out of state, they're going
right.
to have to pay their fair share.
And that's okay.
FIU is a huge bargain, but not just from the standpoint of like the tuition, like just
Right.
in general, the ROI on an FIU degree, astronomical. So yeah, we're one of the most affordable, if not the most affordable state university systems in the country.
And that is one
I
of the big,
paid out of state, and I can tell you it was more than enough.
but that's one of the biggest issues. I mean, kitchen
and
for
even our
Americans in
even
general.
our out-of-state rates,
Right.
Which, like I said, went up a little bit. Even those out-of-state rates, they are cheaper than most states' in-state rates.
So, okay, what's next? Workforce, just quickly, because FIU has, we talked about it earlier, right? No matter where you walk in, it's the workforce engine in this community. So talk about that for a second.
It is. It's
right.
an economic engine that people don't really consider when you're thinking about, major employers, major provider of talent and pipeline, ensuring that the curriculum is aligned with industry. That's one of my priorities as well. Those strategic alliances, those industry partnerships, we want to make sure that they're not just, again, transactional from the standpoint of we're providing them the potential employees, they're hiring our students. We want it to be embedded in a way that makes sense because the industries of today are rapidly changing, as we've talked about a little bit, disruption, AI, all those
Right.
technological breakthroughs that we're seeing that are happening so quickly. We want to make sure that we're ahead of the curve, that we're not missing a beat when it comes to the type of curriculum, the type of skills that they're going to need as they leave our institution.
So I unfortunately, I see 5 minutes we have left.
Yeah.
So, but I want to.
Rapid fire.
No, I know. You know me. I talk a lot, but we'll do this again. But important stuff. I mean, and I think that this is exciting, and you'll understand this. And we have to get so we can talk about this another time. But resilience and security. And I'm not talking about politically. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about resilience. We live it. Hurricanes, flooding, cyber threats. And I mean, FIU's on the front lines of hurricane research, sea level studies, cyber programs, which you were doing as lieutenant governor. And I just, it's not just science, it's survival. This has, right? I mean, it's a big, important part
We have
of
an Extreme Events Institute. We have
Right?
the Wall of Wind. If you have never been to our engineering campus, which is just a little bit down the road from our main campus, our MMC
Yeah.
campus, the Wall of Wind simulates 157 mile per hour winds. It helps with building codes. It helps with policy making. It helps understand what the needs are of our community in terms of resilience
Right.
as it relates to infrastructure. We're looking at doing that on steroids, a 6.0 institute. We're looking at upping the simulation to anywhere between 175 to 200 miles per hour, so Cat 6. We're looking at doing storm surge.
Glenn Milliger used to call me Cat 5 with a hashtag. Now you can change it to Cat 6.
Cat 6.
Right, exactly right.
So we're looking at doing flooding and storm surge, inland flooding, simulating all those things to help as the state of Florida really, and the nation needs to understand what we need to be doing to better harden our infrastructure, our cities, our homes, and that's
what you
really
bring. And
exciting.
by the way, I can't believe this is the last two things I'm talking about. This is so important. FIU earned an A from the ADL, and there's so much going on. This is not, by the way, people think this is a political issue. That's the crazy part about it. For handling anti-Semitism, one of the only 8 universities nationwide, I'm proud to say University of Alabama, which shocks me, where I went to college, also did, but that, and the University of Miami, right, I believe, right? I want to be fair. I mean, that's important, Miami.
Joe and I are good
so,
friends.
of course.
We're friendly competitors.
Of course you are, but
we
that's
collaborate on a lot of things.
but you framed issues in such a way that I love. And again, this is not about politics. People try to manipulate this into anti-communism, human trafficking, and anti-Semitism. They're not separate battles. And I hear you. They're the same fight because, and this is such a Miami thing, defending dignity and freedom, right, against systems that, I think you've said this actually, I think I'm probably repeating your words, that dehumanize. And that's not politics, that's, DNA. That's us saying never again about all of it, right? That's Cuban exiles, I say, saying nunca más, whatever. But, and I think it's first gen fighting for a better life, but let's talk and
2 seconds.
2 minutes. Yeah, no, but we'll talk. This is
But
we're going to continue
anti-Semitism
this.
is
No,
absolutely.
we don't have time because of
It is. I think it's really important, and unfortunately, what has devolved onto in higher ed and in campuses across the country is an indictment on universities and on the leadership, or lack thereof, shall I say? Because I believe that when you see the remnants of what has occurred in history, and when you see that come to life, how can you not speak up? And as a university leader, of course, we pride ourselves on academic freedom, being able to have different viewpoints. But there is a big difference between exercising your First Amendment rights, academic freedom, and then devolving into harassment, persecution. The things that we saw that were shocking to me.
It makes me emotional, so you know that.
Just as a normal, everyday American, looking at what they were doing, what they were saying, how they were blocking professors and students from entering classrooms, the violence. I can tell you from my perspective,
and I certainly
that is never going to happen on FIU.
And I love that, and let's have another. I want to keep talking about that issue because and it's important. But and with everything going on now, and you won't be shocked by this. I get messages like this all the time from people. Somebody sent me, "Oh, speaking of Jewish blood, when are you people going to stop?" I mean, it's crazy. My nephew you met. It's a scary place right now for Jewish people, and what?
Well, I would hope not at FIU.
No, not at FIU. I'm talking about. Yes,
we have 3,000 Jewish students. We have a strong Hillel.
You got an A. Right.
We got an A.
Right.
But that I don't rest on my laurels because we got an A. If there are situations, and I'm certain that they can emanate at any point, at any given moment in time. I want to be ahead of that. I want to make sure that we're addressing it and that people know exactly. They will never have to wonder where I stand on the issue.
And again, I know we have to move, but it's American values. And I say that you're talking about anti-communism, human trust. It's all American values. This is not a political issue. And the fact that it's being framed that way is almost disturbing. And again, I want to continue this, but
let me just say one last thing because
we asked you. I just want to.
We asked you a lot of topics that we chose, but
right.
I did want to ask you if you could put FIU on the map in a way that no one expects and that you would really want to, what would that be?
You keep asking me the hard questions today.
I know you got this.
No.
Yeah. Right.
I would say, of course, academically, we could talk about a lot of things, and I've already shared some of my ideas and my vision for the future. If I could put FIU on the map today, wave my magic wand, it would be in the area of athletics.
Oh, wow, look at that.
The why behind it, is there something specific you want to call out?
Because there is a direct correlation between alumni engagement, alumni participation, fundraising, marketing, the brand. Athletics absolutely raises the academics. And then for our student athletes, there's a correlation between athletic participation and academic performance.
Pretty strategic.
So I know we have to go, but last thing, I'm guessing something. I don't need to guess, I already know. But you must be proud of your 3 children, and of course you are. But also, you serve as an example, right, of your accomplishments. What so many parents want for their kids to achieve. How do your kids react to that? I mean, they're older, right? At this point,
they're older. They've lived. They've always kind of lived under. I wouldn't say the microscope, because I've always tried to insulate and kind of create a firewall between my politics and my kids, but it's impossible in today's day and age, especially with social media. But what I'd say is that my kids don't take my roles too seriously,
right?
I think that's a good thing. That's a positive thing.
Mom is a superhero, but that's all right.
Of course, they're proud of me, and I'm proud of them, and of course I know that they're my number one supporters. But I really think what is great about my family life is I get home and I'm no longer president, I'm no longer lieutenant governor, state representative. I'm just mom, and and they really don't give my professional career too much thought. Especially when they were younger and they needed something. It wasn't like, I'm coming from a meeting with the president, or I'm coming from a really cool opportunity, and they're like, Mom, I need help with my homework, or Mom, we don't have any food, and you need to go to the grocery store. So that's kind of humbling, and they keep me grounded.
We're 305, man. That's at the end of the day, right? This is the 305. We can talk to the janitor and the right.
Yeah.
So let's end it with one thing, and I had something to say, of course, like I always do. We have to go. But how the alumni of FIU are so proud, but why do you think it's different than other schools? I mean, and again, I want to be careful here. We're Miami-Dade, but why is it different? Because there is a difference, and
we're young. We're a young university. We're only 53 years young. So, so many of our alums, especially our more recent ones, are just up and coming in their careers. I also think that, here in South Florida, the vast majority of our students are local, right? And so they look to FIU as kind of course, FIU is always going to exist. Of course, it's always going to, be there for me. But I think as we get older and more mature, I think you're going to see we already have amazing alums that are managing partners of law firms, that are judges, the U.S. Marshal, ambassador to Panama. I mean, those are really cool opportunities.
Oh, that's right.
Ambassador Cabrera. He's an alum.
Bernie didn't know.
Mayors and so many people in our community that we all know and love.
Do you remember the Miami-Dade campaign, college campaign? We got to do that for FI. Seriously, that was a great. By the way, give all power to them. Do you remember?
Yes.
Got to do the same thing. So do you want? I know we were out of time. Do you have anything else?
This was very special. Thank you for much for coming.
Thank you both.
And so, of course, I hope I let you talk, by the way. Sometimes I don't do that. Was I okay, by the way?
Yeah, I think you let me get a word in edgewise.
Oh, did I? No, seriously, did I?
Maybe.
Okay, come on. Now.
I don't know. Right. Eugenio may be the better judge of that.
Oh, no, I know. But I did want to say something, all joking aside, or maybe it wasn't a joke. But anyway, but look, people always look, right, in the world we live in, titles like governor or senator, like that's supposed to be the pinnacle. And those are great, the power, the prestige, the spotlight. But I have to say something to you. What you've stepped into carries a much different kind of gravity. And sometimes I don't think people realize that, because it's not about passing laws or managing headlines and shaping, and that's important, don't get me wrong, but this is about truly directly shaping lives, thousands of them every year. It's about whether a first-generation student becomes the first in their family to graduate, whether a working mom could afford to send her child to college, whether FIU keeps producing the leaders Miami and the state needs for tomorrow. And yes, we talked about it, right? Naysayers, always going to be critics, people who resist change, who cling to convention, who are so scared of something different, and who try to knock others down because they're threatened by creativity. But here's the truth. Jeanette Nuñez, if you follow the old playbook, it can be good, whatever, stay on status quo, but it's never going to be great. And that's not you. The greatness comes, and I know you're going to do this, when you throw away the old playbook out the window. It doesn't mean you're not still focused on some of it, but you throw away the playbook. You take risks, and you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay, right? If you don't make mistakes, you're not doing anything, and push the boundaries. And that's the kind of leadership that FIU needs right now. And I'm joking. Yeah, we've had rivalries, petty fights, whatever. I'm joking around. But at the end of the day, you are the epitome of an amazing public servant to this community, to this state. You're a patriot. You're a proud American, and to this nation. So as you take on this next chapter, know something. You're not alone. There's a lot of people in this community actually who are not naysayers. You have friends. You have supporters. And we sometimes think that all these people talking represent us, but the entire city wants you to succeed. I'm proud to say we are both, both on your side, and we're behind you. And this isn't just your future. It's Miami's, it's the state, it's the country. So thank you what you're doing. And we greatly appreciate you. And thank you for doing this.
Of course. Thank you both so very much. Really honored to have done this. Of course. Thank you.